Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I'm your guide, Derek Hayes. It's starting to happen, folks. We're trending toward autumn. The days are growing shorter. That crisp morning air. It won't be too long now before those leaves begin to change. Then you know what that means. It means that spooky season is afoot. But around here, spooky season is always afoot. We practice that religion 24/7, 365. And tonight, I have a wide array of stories to prove that point. Spooky stories. So what do you say we get started? Hailing from parts unknown, please welcome Anonymous to the program.
I think I want to remain anonymous for this call. Long story short, my husband owns a car shop and had a disgruntled customer that just took things too far. We had to, call the cops when he picked his car up, and his whole family was there, and it was just this big dramatic thing that happened. So the very next day following that, I almost got into 2 car accidents with my kids in the car. Very dramatic for me. Bad morning. And then I felt like I was just off, or at least the universe was off. I was almost getting caught behind a tractor, and I would have been late to work, but I just barely missed it. That day I got to work and they told me, oh, you have to get your flu vaccine by today. It's not even a big deal. I called my husband and I was like, the universe is trying to tell me something. I'm not on the ball. Something's up. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're being crazy. And then later that day, he calls me that afternoon, and he says that he got rear-ended in a customer vehicle. And I was just like, that is bizarre. I mean, I don't remember the last time either one of us even had a fender bender. I mean, over 8 to 10 years since either one of us has been in any kind of accident. So when he told me that, after the morning I had almost getting in an accident, I was like, geez, that's super weird. And then he decides to tell me that he's like, I didn't want to tell you this because I know that you'll make, a big deal out of it when it's nothing. But that customer that was mad the other day, his girlfriend who was there, she is pagan and she practices witchcraft. And he's like, I have reason to believe maybe she, after conversations he'd had with them, before things went wrong, he's like, I feel like, what if that girl put some kind of curse or hex or something on us? I was like, oh my God, no way. And then I get a call from my mom. My mom tells me that my stepbrother just got in a car accident. He hit a deer, totaled her car. It's always stuff in the car too, which is I don't know, seems like a red flag to me, but I was in the car in the parking lot, and somebody kind of swerved in front of me, and then they pulled up next to me, and they opened their door, and they were all angry, and I had to speed away, and I just was, totally caught off guard. Don't know what that was about, but it just seemed, I couldn't ignore it. It all seemed slightly related. And I know I sound crazy, and you're probably going to hear this, and you're going to think, oh my God, this girl needs to go talk to a therapist, but no. I'm trying really hard to not think that is the case, but I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm just wondering if anybody has any 2 cents to give on that. Is there something I can do to protect myself? I do a lot of dressing every day, and I've got 2 small kids, and I just don't want to do nothing. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anonymous. Maybe I should get a hold of that guy's girlfriend. I have a short list of people deserving of a little visit. In all seriousness, though, Sarah and I joke all the time about how we're cursed. We're constantly and consistently battling major issues, illnesses, unexpected major expenses, financial setbacks, personal tragedies, deaths in the family. It has been a lot these past 8 or 9 years. And it seems like that every time we finally tackle one of these issues, 2 more pop up in its place. It's been a little overwhelming for us, quite frankly. So I get where you're coming from, caller. It can be a lot. Now, when something like that happens once or twice, it's easy to dismiss it. You're just having a bad day. But when events stack up to the tune of a dozen instances in one 24-hour span, well, that's when it's time to take notice. Now, I might be splitting hairs here a bit, but I don't believe our caller was actually hexed. If anything, she was cursed. A hex is a powerful one-and-done curse. Consider it like being hit with a baseball bat right in the face. It hurts. It can be painful. It can be bloody. But it rarely is permanent. However, it sounds like our caller, with all the tiny, terrible moments that kept happening, may have actually been cursed. Now, a curse has the same power as a hex, but it will impact every facet of your life, and it'll do what it can to make that life crumble. Curses are easier to spot, but the hardest to get rid of. Now, I don't think pagans have any special powers that the rest of us don't, so I have my doubts that she quote-unquote cursed you. But I do agree that is a lot to happen in the span of 24 hours. So curse, hex, or whatever it was, I hope things get better for you, caller. And we thank you again for kicking us off here tonight. Now, according to my calculations, which are really just ballpark guesses, we actually have time for one more call. So Cheryl, out of Kansas, get on in here.
Hi, this is Cheryl. This is my favorite story about paranormal things that's happened to me. It was back in 1988. Lived in New Hampshire. My fiancé had just been killed in a motorcycle accident. It was a week before our wedding. And one night I'd gone to bed, and my mom was staying there, and my fiancé had just moved in the house, so we didn't have an extra room or anything. So she was sleeping in the room with me. And I woke up one morning with my toes being pinched, and my mom wasn't there. And why this is significant is that when my fiancé would go to work, and he would go to work early before I would get up, he would always pinch my toes. Wouldn't wake me up, but he'd pinch my toes to let me know that he was leaving. So I think he was just telling me goodbye. I love that story. It was very comforting. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Cheryl. What a terrible thing to have happened. I'm sorry. But I'm glad that you're able to take comfort in the strange experience that you had. I hope it was him coming back to say goodbye. And as tragic as all of this is, there's something beautiful in that story. Now, as far as pinching goes, ghostly pinching that is, there are a few cases out there where this sort of thing has been reported. Famously, victims of the Bell Witch haunting, the Enfield poltergeist, the Porley Rectory haunting, and the Great Amherst Mystery all reported pinching on more than one occasion. And additionally, there are lesser-known stories featuring that same detail. If you check out tonight's show notes at monstersamonguspodcast.com, you can learn more about those obscure cases. And the last thing I will leave you with here is a bit of folklore. It's said that if you wake up to find mystery bruises on your body, that you likely received the dead man's pinch. Now, thankfully, Cheryl, you seem to know your pincher, so nothing nefarious there. But I certainly can't speak to the rest of these legends. Thank you again, Cheryl, for that touching tale. Now, folks, we need to take a quick break to pay for all of this, so stick around, and I'll be right back.
That scientifically measures your shape and size and... You want to stay right because there's...
Now, hiring shouldn't be a hassle or a drain on your budget. Thankfully, there's Upwork, your one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent, saving time and keeping costs in check, all in one place. Upwork has more than 2 decades of experience with a simple and ambitious goal: to pioneer a better way of working. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and to find more flexibility in the way they staff projects. Upwork allows you to access a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, design, admin support, marketing, and more. Posting a job on Upwork is easy, and there's no cost to join. And browse freelancer profiles, draft a job post, or book a consultation. From there, you can hire the right freelancers to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the entire process easier and more affordable with industry-low fees. Post a job today and hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now to post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com.
I just believe this.
I'm not one of these people who sees demons hiding under every rock.
Now, folks, if you would, join me in the Show Me state, where Brad is waiting with his story.
Hi, this is Brad from Missouri. So this took place in Springfield, Missouri. This has been over 10 years ago, and I'm curious to know if anybody else has seen this. But on West Bypass, in between the Chestnut Expressway light and the Mount Vernon light, there is a little tree line on the right side. Right after the Walmart opened on that corner, me, my dad, my grandpa went to go check it out, and that should take maybe just over a minute to cross that way. I look outside my window, and there's a triangle-shaped craft. And it's not like any other triangle-shaped craft that has ever been described that I know of. It's completely hollow in the middle, and it looks like this metal that's been twisted around into a triangle shape. It's red on one side, white on the other, and it was standing what I would say, upright and not flying like the black triangle. It's standing straight up. And whatever technology that is, it's very advanced because it seemed to distort at least my perception of time, because it seemed like it took us 10 plus minutes to cross that little bit of road, and it was following us, it seemed like. But it looked like traffic was still moving, and it looked like it was, with us. But I had turned away and looked back about 3 or 4 times, and it was still there. And the last time I looked away, and then we approached the light, and then I looked back, and that thing it's like it dropped off. And it was still there, but obviously when we came out of the store, it was gone. So I'm wondering if anyone else has seen that. But have a good day, and I love the podcast.
Thank you, Brad, for calling in. Now, I've heard so many black triangle stories over the years, including encounters with unusual variations of the phenomena. But I don't know that I've ever heard an account quite like Brad's. And when that sort of thing happens, what I like to do is put my feelers out there. So have any of you seen anything like this? Do you have a photograph, some video, or perhaps some inside information? Or perhaps you have another paranormal parable you would like to share? If so, give our 24/7 365 hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or record your story as a voice memo on your phone and email it to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Now don't forget, there are a couple of simple rules. Call from a quiet place. 1 story per call. Only submit your story once. If you need more time to finish than our allotted 5 minutes, just call back and pick up where you left off. Oh, and true stories only. We have a pretty good BS meter around here, so let's not bother wasting anyone's time. Oh, and if you have a youngster that's had an experience, consider turning them on to Monsters Among Us Jr. The 2nd season just started last night, and I must say, Delaney and I kicked things off with a bang. Now that number to submit is 833-MAU-KIDS, 833-MAU-KIDS, and it too is toll-free and open 24/7. So wherever you share your story, we certainly appreciate you doing so with us. Now, speaking of sharing stories, Patrick has one he'd like to share here with us. Welcome to the program, Patrick.
Hey, Derek. My name is Patrick. I have had a couple of paranormal experiences in my life. There's 2 that, to me, are more egregious than others, but I'll just tell you the one. I'm 34 now, so I think it happened maybe 20 years ago. I was in my mid-teens. I was like maybe 14, 15 years old. And in my house, we had a 1-bathroom house. The bathroom was on the main floor, and our washer dryer were in the basement. Just gotten out of the shower, and I had to go downstairs to grab clean clothes because there was clean clothes in the dryer that hadn't been taken off and folded yet. I went downstairs to grab the clothes, and I grabbed them, and I was coming back up the stairs. And the way our house was set up, if you came in my front door, you came in the living room, came down the hallway, then went through the dining room, and then right in front of you, the whole rest of the house kind of unfolded. It was the kitchen to the right, then my deceased grandmother's room, which had then since been turned into like a computer room of sorts. Then to the left of her room was the bathroom with the shower in it, then my room. And the basement door was literally parallel from across like little tiny hallway connecting all the rooms. So as you came up the basement stairs, there was no way that you wouldn't be able to see into the bathroom just by nature of walking up the stairs. It's literally parallel to each other. My grandmother passed in 1998. This was like 2004, so about 6 years had passed. So I was coming up the basement stairs, and I happened to notice, I want to call it like a peach-sized or like golf ball-sized orb float out of my grandmother's room, floated into the bathroom, didn't make a sound, it was just an orb of light, floated from her room into the bathroom across the hall, and shorted out the light fixture in the bathroom. And I heard the sound of the filaments, like, I don't know any other way to describe it, and then like being overloaded with electricity, and then I heard the filaments in the light bulb pop. It was like one of the loudest pops I'd ever heard. So loud that my mother in the living room all the way at the front of the house heard the filaments breaking, and she started yelling at me because she thought I broke something, and she was like, what the hell was that? I was like, I don't know how to tell you what I just saw. She came running in to the hallway and looked in the bathroom and saw what had happened to the light bulb. And I told her what I saw. She believed me. She believes this kind of stuff. And, there were other little things, like right after my grandma passed, my mom said she could smell her cologne out of nowhere, and just stuff like that. So that one, to this day, I don't think I'll ever be able to explain that. It's always my go-to story when, you're hanging out with people around this time of year and the inevitable question about, have you guys ever seen anything you can't explain comes up. This is always the story I tell. So I appreciate your work, and it's really fun to listen to. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Patrick. What do you think here, folks? Was that Grandma coming back to say hello? Perhaps it was her residual energy, repeating a daily routine that she'd had when she was living. Or was this some sort of ball lightning experience that just so happened to take the same path that I assume Grandma often took? Whatever it is, whatever it was certainly real, because it shorted out the electricity in the bathroom. So something had to have happened. But what that thing is will likely remain a mystery forever. But we sure do thank you, Patrick, for sharing it here with us. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that someday we get to the bottom of this mystery. Now, folks, just to mention it one more time, it is official. Season 2 of Monsters Among Us Jr. has begun. You can find MAU Jr. anywhere you find podcasts. And for those of you that are curious, Junior is just like the main show, except that the callers are all children and teens, sharing their experiences in their own words. And you might not think it, but we get some pretty spooky entries over there. So I highly recommend you check it out. Just search out Monsters Among Us Jr. and share with that little spookster in your life. Now, moving right along here, let's bring in this call from California. Please welcome Jackie to tonight's program.
Hi, Derek. My name is Jackie, and I am from Paramount, California. I recently was invited by my daughter to go see a little mini concert of Little Yachty in San Diego. So she rented an Airbnb in San Diego, and we went over there. The house where we stayed at, the area was very quiet, suburban. The weather was kind of foggy that day because we got there pretty late, like around 6 or so. And so we noticed that the Airbnb was in the back house. So we had to go on the side of the house to enter the back little Airbnb area. I guess it was an attachment to the house. So we went in. We were very quiet, thinking that there was somebody living in the front house. And it was basically just a bed, a desk, bathroom. It's really cozy. So we got ready, we went to the concert, and when we came back, we were really tired. We went to sleep, and around 3 in the morning, I woke up just because I couldn't sleep. And when I looked up, the door of the Airbnb were like French doors. It's not like a wall and a door. It was just like big French doors with a very sheer curtain. And I looked out, and I noticed there was the silhouette of a man just standing just like in front of the French doors, the entrance. And I thought to myself, could it be the people that live in the front house or the landlord? I mean, I didn't know, but I was just like, it's weird. It's 3 in the morning and he was just standing there in front of our door. Then I saw him move away from the French door, and I thought he was going to pass by the side, and there was another window, but he never passed. So I kind of just didn't really think about it, and I went to sleep. And not until the next morning when I told my daughter told me that the Airbnb was vacant. There was nobody living in the front house. There was nobody living there. We peeked through the house, and it was empty. There was no furniture. And so I was just wondering, like, who was that? You know, I got really scared. And behind the house, too, there was a big hill. So I wouldn't know why anybody would be back there. Anyways, that was it. It really creeped me out because I really did see the silhouette man. it just kind of brings a little shiver in my skin. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the call. I don't know, Jackie. That might have been an intruder. And this experience sort of brings attention to something everyone should consider when it comes to paranormal experiences. If you see what you think is an apparition or a shadow person in your home, or your space, let's say, the very first thing you should do is verify that it's not a living human being, or they shouldn't be. In other words, don't mistake an intruder for a ghost and then just go back to sleep, like so many of our past callers have seemed to do, including Jackie here. So sure, it could have been some sort of paranormal visitor, but chances are a lot better that it was a human, possibly up to no good. A ghost, shadow person, or an intruder. It's blood-chilling stuff, no matter what it was, Jackie. And we thank you again for taking the time to share it.
Make sure your system is safe to use. Guard. I'm just so glad I decided to become a Buckeye.
Was trying to talk to you during the break, Andre. I had this.
Alrighty, folks. Next up, we hear from Leanne, here in California.
Hello, Derek. My name is Leanne. I'm from California. About a little over a year ago, we lost my dad, mostly due to cirrhosis, and it wasn't something we really expected. But anyway, this took place during his viewing services. We're Catholic, and we typically have a day just for viewing where the body is placed in the casket, usually in a church or some sort of hall where family and friends can see them and say goodbye for the last time before the burial the next day. So we had the viewing service, and shortly after, everyone left to go eat before we had the church services, about an hour following the viewing services, and a few of us stayed behind so that my dad wouldn't be alone in a casket before they took him to the church. And we were all sitting in the pews except for my aunt, who was my dad's sister, who was at the casket, kind of giving her last farewells. And a little bit of a backstory, my dad used to always whistle to her whenever he would visit her. And I'll try to do it, but I'm not a very good whistler. It went something like this. Again, not a very good whistler. But anyways, he used to do that to my aunt whenever he would visit her. And she was saying her goodbyes, and I was sitting in the front row of the pews. And to the left of me were the big doors where they carry the casket into the hearse. And they were wide open. It was a very clear day. It was in beginning of December, so it was a nice crisp day. It was a very calm day, and it was like early afternoon. My aunt was saying her goodbyes, and I remember sitting there, and I said, you know, I'm just waiting for him to get up and whistle again. And as soon as those words left my mouth, not even a second later, that whistle rang through the entire hall. It was so loud. It was so clear. The clearest I've ever heard it. Everyone turned and looked at me. Mind you, there were only about, I would say, 6 or 7 of us that had stayed behind. And they all looked at me thinking that I did it because it sounded like it came from the 2 big doors that were open. And I immediately said, who did that? And everyone started saying, well, we thought you did it. Didn't you do it? Like it came from where you're sitting, because I was pretty much by myself. Everyone else was kind of scattered out through the pews, kind of sitting on their own. And my family would not do that to me. They would not lie. If they had done the whistle, they would have fessed up to it, and no one did it. I walked outside as soon as no one admitted to doing it, and there was no one outside. I looked around. It was completely clear. There was nothing. No one could explain it. And to this day, my aunt says that it was my dad saying goodbye to me. So thank you. I hope this makes it on. I'll probably cry if I hear it. Thanks, Derek. Bye.
Thanks, Leanne. And I'm sorry for your loss. But like with Cheryl earlier in the program, at the very least, it sounds like your loved one was trying to make contact. And you know, if things went down the way you said they did, Leanne, I'd say that's exactly what happened. So thank you for sharing that touching experience and for helping to prove that not all paranormal interactions need be scary. Sometimes they can be touching as well. Now folks, before we move on to this next entry, it is official. Our Halloween shirts are restocked in the shop, so get them while you can. They sold out pretty fast the first time, so I recommend moving quickly. This year's design is by Halloween icon Sam Heimer and features Bigfoot and Mothman lighting a jack-o'-lantern. Visit the shop at monstersamonguspodcast.com and by clicking the shop tab to pick up yours today. Okay, folks, I'm going to need all you bug people to listen up for this next one. Please welcome Caroline from the state of Florida to tonight's program.
Hi, Derek. This is Caroline, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I wanted to call about something that happened when I was really young. I was probably under the age of 10, but I can remember it very clearly. Me and my sisters, we would go to my grandmother's house while my mom was working. So we were at her house one afternoon after she picked us up from school, and I remember I went out back through, there was a sliding glass door that was in the living room, and then that would lead to a porch. So I went through the sliding glass door onto the porch outside. And then outside there was like a little paved path. It was like a sidewalk. So on that sidewalk there was a butterfly. And the butterfly was dead. And me being a little girl, I was very upset by this. I remember I picked it up in my hands and I started crying. It was in my hands. I was sitting on the ground just crying, and it was there 1 second and gone the next. It literally disappeared within a second. And that's not what was super weird. What was weird was that in its place there was glitter. Is the only way I can describe it. It was like sparkly, it was glitter, and it was all over my hands, and it was all over the grass in front of me. And so I instantly called for my grandmother, and she runs from inside the house and comes out, and I showed her. I'm like, oh my gosh, look. And me being a little girl I was, I'm like, it's magic. I was crying, and the butterfly went to heaven, and I was just so excited about it. And she witnessed it too. And I've always wondered about it. I thought, maybe my grandmother took it out of my hand. I don't know, but I would have noticed. It was so fast. Like, I would have noticed her pull it out of my hand and sprinkle glitter. And then she'd have to run back inside to run out, because I witnessed her run out of the house. I just don't know if it's possible, because literally this happened within 1 second. It was in my hand. I've seen it. I was crying, and then it was just gone. And there was all this glitter all over myself, all over my hands, and all over the grass. And that's really the end of that memory that I have. But yeah, I don't know what that was. If anybody else has experienced anything like it, I would love to know. I think about this experience all the time, and I just have never thought of any explanation for what it could have been. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for that entry. I don't know. Could the dead butterfly have been so brittle that it simply disintegrated when Caroline touched it? If I remember correctly, butterflies and moths' wings are covered in very tiny little scales. So could the quote-unquote glitter that Caroline remembered simply be scales from the wings? Or maybe Caroline's young mind misremembered the series of events. Maybe there is some sort of biological explanation at play here. Or perhaps there was some sort of magic going on. Now, as always, if you're out there listening and you think you know what Caroline experienced, be sure to reach out. In the meantime, however, we thank you again, Caroline, for ringing in with that mystery. Now, folks, if you tuned in on Tuesday of this week, you would have heard our Best of Alien Abduction Stories episode. And here with one more alien abduction story is Robin from the state of Arizona.
Hi, Derek. This is Robin from Phoenix, Arizona. So I want to say maybe a sophomore in high school, so early 2000s, and we lived in this very haunted house, and I was sleepwalking a lot when we lived in this house. And one morning I wake up, and I have pants on that I didn't go to sleep with, and my legs really hurt like I had been running. I had told my mom this, and she freaked out. She ended up sleeping with her door open, trying to make sure if she ever heard me get out of my room. But we never could figure out why I woke up feeling like I had been running or if I had even gotten out of the house. We're not sure. But fast forward a little bit, I want to say a handful of weeks, and I end up finding a mark on my back. And it's 3 circular dots in the shape of a triangle on my back, kind of right on my spine. And I freak out. I think I have cancer or something. I'd never seen this spot before. I remember telling my mom about it, but her not thinking it was much of anything. And then one night, again, fast forward maybe a month, maybe less, I'm watching some kind of documentary on alien abduction. And it says that they're going to show us marks that are common for alien abductions. And so I'm watching, waiting for them to show marks. Because now I'm thinking, do I have an alien abduction mark? And of course, it's the end of the episode. They finally start showing pictures of marks from people who claim to have been abducted. And the very last photo was of somebody with 3 dots in a triangle. And, of course, I freak out. I think I've been abducted, and I believed I had been abducted for quite some time. Now I'm not so for sure, simply because I've heard that people get abducted multiple times. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But I don't know. You let me know if you think that I was abducted. Nothing ever happened after that. And actually, the mark ended up going away. So I don't know if you can explain that one either. But that's my alien abduction story, and I will call back at a later time with haunted house stories. Bye.
Oh, Robin, you're not going to like what I'm about to share with you. Now we're going to start off here with a couple of humans. Researchers, in fact. UFO researchers. Specializing in UFO abductions. Now, one name that you might already know, or at the very least have heard of, is Bud Hopkins. Hopkins had been featured on countless television programs and in numerous UFO conferences before his death back in 1991. But there was another researcher prevalent in this field during that exact same time period. A researcher that was also an experiencer. Dr. Carla Turner. Dr. Turner was a prominent researcher and presenter back in the day, covering subjects like alien abduction, cattle mutilation, and government cover-up. But one of the things that she was most known for was her research into marks left on abductees, specifically triangle-shaped marks, which she noted regularly in her research. So much so that she began referring to the particular shape as the quote-unquote ET brand. 3 single solitary dots that form a triangle formation, the exact same formation that it seems Robin received after her potential abduction. Now, like I'd mentioned before, Turner is actually an abductee herself, and she too has received the 3 triangle-shaped marks on her body. Now, here is the crazy part about Dr. Turner. She passed away back in 1996, but some folks in the field believe she was murdered by none other than the CIA. Again, at least that's what the legends will tell you. But according to several sources online, Turner actually passed away after a battle with cancer. Now, there's not a ton of her evidence preserved online, save for a handful of lectures on YouTube and a trio of books on the subject. But Delaney did manage to track down one photograph purportedly depicting these strange marks on the neck of an experiencer. Now, I've linked to that photograph in tonight's show notes. And if the mark that Robin found looks anything like what I think it does, I feel like these are an exact match. So visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the show notes tab to take a look. I promise you, this isn't the last we'll hear of Dr. Turner. I think she still has a lot more to share with us. But for now, we thank you, Robin, for the crash course.
May 15th, 9 a.m. 2 women quietly waiting at the dock.
De Casanova y esencialización.
And folks, that takes us to the home stretch. I can almost see the barn from here. And to get us a few more steps closer to tonight's conclusion, please welcome Aaliyah out of the state of Colorado.
Hi, Derek. This is Aaliyah Surratt calling from Longmont, Colorado. I was calling to report a story of mine that I'd woken up one night and I rolled over to be looking at my door, and there was a silhouette of me in the door made out of TV snow, and it kind of scared me, so I blinked 3 times really hard and it went away, so I went back to sleep. Well, the next time I woke up, I was laying on my same side facing the door, and the silhouette of me was sitting right next to my bed looking up at me, and so I immediately blinked it away 3 times and it went away. The 3rd time I woke up, I was laying facing the wall, and I wasn't about to roll over because I figured it would be on top of me. So that's my story. Thank you, Monsters Among Us. Have a good night.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Now, I know this is the 3rd time I've brought it up tonight, but maybe that number is the charm. But anyway, on the next episode of Monsters Among Us Jr., we actually feature another call very similar to this one. A static man encounter from a young man named Adam in Illinois. But you'll have to tune into that episode to hear that tale. But the point here is that this is a figure that folks have seen before. They call it the static man, or just static people. And from what I gather, a majority of the sightings of this thing take place in or around the bedroom, which would make me wonder if it's not another in a long line of sleep paralysis tropes, like the Hat Man, the Old Hag, Gray Aliens, that sort of thing. A character that somehow found a way to invade everyone's minds, or at the very least, the zeitgeist. Now, it's interesting stuff, Aaliyah, and we'll certainly keep our eyes open for further static man encounters. But in the meantime, thank you again for making the call. Well, folks, that takes us to tonight's final entry. A fun little story, also from the Rocky Mountain State. This time, please join me in welcoming Nightwolf to tonight's program.
Yeah, my name is Nightwolf. I live in Pueblo, Colorado. It's been some years. I never told anybody, but me and my brother, this happened in 1999. Had to be around fall. And we were traveling. We got done coming from a farmer's market, and we grabbed some pears and apples, and we were going to go up to Bertha Pass on West 40. Just go, drive up there because, it's a cool drive in the mountains. So we go driving up there, and the road's windy. It's in the mountains, and we come across this bend in the road. We were just cruising along, just sightseeing. Me and my brother chatting and laughing and talking. The time, it had to be around 6 o'clock because the sun barely started going down. I look in my rearview mirror and I told my brother there's a bear. It's coming over the side of the road. It's on the side of a mountain, so it goes straight down and then goes straight up the other side of the mountain. So we slam on the brakes and I said, hey, give me one of those pears. And he gives me one and I get out, and I used to pitch. So I'm maybe about a good 50 feet from it. And I told him, I said, I'm going to just throw this pear at this bear and hit him. And, he'll probably just eat it. So my brother gets out and he goes, it don't look like a bear. And I said, no, that's a bear. So I grabbed the pear and I throw it as hard as I could. And I hit it in the side where the shoulder would be on the bear. And it just started sitting up. And I was like, okay. But the crazy thing is it grabbed the pear. And my brother started freaking out. And then I was like, just calm down. I said, just be cool. I said, we don't even know what it is. And then it fully erected and stood straight up and looked like a man. And I was like, dude, that ain't no bear, dude. And, we started thinking about it, and we were standing near the trunk of the car, just staring at this thing, and it's massive. I'd say a good 8.5 feet. This thing is big. And, we're close enough to see details. And I told my brother, I said, you know what? I said, I see all these documentaries, dude, about, Bigfoot and, Yetis, but everybody always runs. I told my brother, I said, just get on your cell phone and get ready to call 911. And he goes, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, give me the whole bag of pears. And then I seen 2 other little heads popping up on the side of the road. And it was weird because we didn't smell nothing. You didn't smell anything at all. And then all of a sudden you seen this another big one coming up. And it was kind of on all fours, but kind of hunched over walking. And then you seen a little one. And I was like, oh man, there's a whole family of them. And I said, give me the bag. And I took the bag from my brother because he was so scared. I started walking over there and he goes, dude, don't do that. He'll rip you in half. I said, no, man, I'm going to go look at this thing. I said, I don't care. I'm going to get close as possible to it. Well, I started getting probably within another about 15 feet of it. And I threw another pear. And I hit him in the chest with it. And all of a sudden, he must have took it as an aggressive act or something because we didn't smell nothing, but he right away stretched his arms completely out, which, they were long. And he let out this gurgling, I don't want to say a roar, but it had a lot of bass to it. You could feel it in your chest. I don't know. It was just like bass, like a hardcore grunt. So when he did that, then it started to stink. As soon as he did that, it started smelling and stinking as soon as he spread his arms out and felt threatened. So it was kind of weird. His fur was a darkish brown. You could see I don't know if he was old or not because you could see gray in it. So I don't know if he was like an elder or something. Being Navajo, we are always taught to respect them and stuff. So I had grabbed that whole bag of pears and I threw it as hard as I can so, he could give it to his family or just take the whole bag or whatever he's going to do with it. But they all looked the same, but they were like a dark brown. But it was weird though, because the little one, his face was like, you could see skin, but it was like covered in hair, but it was real, like perfectly round. Like it didn't get its shape yet. Not like the dad and the mom, with the crest on their head. It was insanely crazy. And after that, we had jumped back in the car and we were all scared. And we went down to the nearest store and we had told them, we saw Bigfoot on Bertha's Pass. And they go, oh yeah, we get that around here quite often. We hear stories. And I said, no, it just happened. And me and my brother actually sat down and started talking. And it was funny because his Bigfoot's face looked just like my dad's. And we just started cracking up. We were like, oh, Bigfoot's face looked just like dad's. And the way my dad grew his beard and mustache and his hair being long and everything, and the way he looks, it just the same thing. It was like odd and weird. And one thing that got me was like his nose. The Bigfoot's nose was like, it looked like it had almost like the same texture as a dog's nose. It was strange, weird. But he looked like kind of greasy too. But yeah, that's my story, man. My son keeps telling me to call you and stuff. We love your show. And yeah, we appreciate you being out there and doing this for people to be able to call, All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Nightwolf. And your son was right. I'm glad that you took his advice. Now, Bigfoot. I sure do enjoy a good Bigfoot story. Typically because they're scary. Someone sees something big and hairy flash in front of their vehicle on a lonesome, deserted road. Or a farmer catches a glimpse of something almost human retreating from his chicken coop. Most encounters seem to possess an element of danger. Almost like whatever this thing is, it could turn on a dime and come right at you. Not unlike the way any other wild animal may behave. But there's something different about Nightwolf's experience. He didn't run. The creatures didn't run. And it was all very peaceful. Well, except for Nightwolf chucking pears at these things, I guess. Now let's start with a quick step backward. Colorado is one of those strange places, like Minnesota or Texas. Places you would likely assume have little to nothing to do with Bigfoot. Aside from selling magnets and hats at a roadside pop-up. But surprisingly, all three of these states have little pockets here and there that are known for this type of activity. And although Berthold Pass is not necessarily one of them, it is in close proximity to many historical sightings. Take this report, for example. It was submitted to the BFRO all the way back in the year 2000. The encounter took place near Bakersville on Loveland Pass, only about 45 miles away from where Nightwolf and his brother had their experience. Here is a summary of those events. A friend and I and my dog were hiking in the Loveland Pass of Colorado. We parked on Highway 6 where it crosses the Continental Divide and hiked south along the divide for about 5 miles. We had descended below the tree line where the valley petered out into a boggy meadow. This meadow runs down to a stream. We began to hear what we thought were noises from a large animal across the stream. We tried approaching the source of the noise, but as we moved closer, the sound moved away downstream along the opposite bank. I started catching glimpses of a large, hairy, brown and black animal, and I thought we were following a bear. The animal then moved a little closer to us and appeared to watch us for several seconds. Its height made it look like a bear reared up on its hind legs. It turned and moved off downstream, through the brush in a long, loping, two-legged gait. Now you can of course find the full report in tonight's show notes. But that's pretty much the gist of it. And you know, believe it or not, the reports go back even further than 25 years ago. Now the following occurred only about 45 miles from the location of Nightwolf's experience.
The earliest date back to the 1880s, reported in mining camp newspapers out of Leadville. A couple of miners out working in the mountains. They heard a strange moaning noise. They went to investigate, climbed a pile of rocks to see what it was.
When one of the men crossed to the top of the pile of rocks, he had a frightening encounter. What he reported was an incredible story of coming face to face with a large furry creature, a half man, half beast, unlike anything he'd seen before.
The newspaper described the frightened miner as pale as death and frightening so badly he could barely speak to explain the story of what he had seen.
Now that clip courtesy of one of my favorites, Monster Quest. And the voice you heard in that clip was Colorado historian and newspaper reporter Kathy Lell. So as you can see, Nightwolf, Bigfoot may not be an overwhelming presence in the area, but it does have a presence there. But of course I don't have to tell you that, because you found out firsthand. Now I do have one quick complaint here, Nightwolf. You told your brother to have his phone in his hand to call 911. But everybody knows. You get the picture first, then you call for help. I'm very disappointed. But this is fun stuff, Nightwolf, and we can't thank you enough for sharing this wild encounter here with us. And folks, that's going to do it for this evening. A big thanks to all of tonight's callers. A huge thanks to you, dear listener, for tuning in. And another big thanks to my crew for helping to make all of this possible. Now, Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes, Delaney Bowers, and Connor Ryan. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. Give us a like and follow on our social media accounts. Join our Discord server. Follow us on YouTube. Leave us a rate and review wherever possible. And just do whatever you can to support the show. We sure would appreciate it. Now don't forget, you can catch the program every Saturday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern on the UNX Digital Network. Just visit unxnetwork.com to tune in. Now, tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Co.ag Music, and Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Now, don't forget about our movie, Shadows in the Desert, High Strangeness in the Borrego Triangle. Visit borregotriangle.com to tune in. And don't forget to join us in the Beyond. Just keep listening to the show or visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the Patreon tab to learn how you can join. Alright folks, I'll see most of you on the other side. But for everyone else, a tip to the hat and a good night to you.
They was just talking about the 400,000.
They kind of follow the blueprint of that is the vision for that team, and I think they're built for it. Haven't been treatment, then it's
Now, tonight's secret story is one of those weird ones. Go figure. Please welcome Tony, out of the state of Washington.
Hey, Derek and company. This is Tony from the Seattle suburbs in Washington State. Long-time listener, love the podcast. It's just kind of strange. I was living in Tampa, Florida a few years ago, and it was at nighttime, about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, in a Tampa suburb. I was waiting for a bus on a busy street. Typical traffic. Businesses, some still open, some not. And I happened to look up from the bus stop. I saw a white glow, almost like a sparkler glow, but a little bit bigger than that. And it was moving like a bird would fly in the sky, probably about 20, 30 feet up. You know how birds will flap their wings, they'll elevate, and they'll dip, and they'll elevate again. That's what this was doing. It was flying like a bird, but I swear to God, it was like Tinkerbell. And I don't know of any bioluminescent birds, but if you have any clues of what this is, I'd be happy to hear it. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Tony, for calling in. Now, as we've covered on past episodes, and we're about to cover on an upcoming episode, people all over the world claim to see what can only be described as a pterodactyl, a giant, leathery, dinosaur-esque creature gliding through the night air. The present-day night air. Now, as wild as that sounds, I've probably fielded a dozen calls on this subject over the years, and I wonder if Tony's recount isn't yet another of these submissions. Now, I make that suggestion because many sightings of this creature from around the world, especially far-off places like Papua New Guinea, depict it glowing in the dark. A vibrant bioluminescent lizard bird soaring over the island. And I know what you're thinking. Animals that big don't glow in the dark. Vertebrates don't glow in the dark. Well, not so fast, my friend. Because I don't think that's how it all works anymore. Because it wasn't that long ago that other creatures were discovered to share this strange trait. The following clip is from my local news station, KABC, ABC News 7, out of the City of Angels.
Well, check out these images from off the coast of New Zealand. Scientists say they found 3 shark species that glow in the dark. The 3 species were already known to marine biologists, but this is the first time the bioluminescence has been documented in them. It is also the first time it's been found in large sharks. Scientists think the glowing sharks, or the sharks' glowing underbellies, I should say, help them hide from predators beneath them.
So, the ability to glow in the dark. Not as impossible as we once thought, but a surviving dinosaur-like reptile. That might be a whole nother story. But I promise we will revisit this topic again in just a few weeks. I know that because it's already slated. But until then, thanks again, Tony, for getting our beaks wet here on the subject. Well, folks, it's that time of the night. It's time to go beyond. The bonus show we put on each and every Thursday, directly after the end of the main show. And tonight I have a scare-studded lineup for you, including more bird weirdness, hat men, tiny men, shadow men, and this unsettling entry from Wendy in Missouri. Now, if you'd like to join us, it is simple. Visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the Patreon tab. From there, a simple $5 monthly donation gets you access to days' worth of additional content. And don't forget about the free 7-day trial. Now, on to Wendy's incredible story.
Hi, Derek. My name is Wendy, and I am calling from Central Missouri. I've got probably 2 pages of stories that I could call in and tell you about. But the one I wanted to share with you tonight is one that bothers me a lot because the paranormal has never, it freaks me out, but it doesn't scare me because I've experienced things my entire life. I've never experienced anything that made me feel that there was anything evil or out to do harm. It's always just felt like people who just kind of want somebody to know that they're there. But this night was completely different. It plagues me to the point where I have a hard time being outside at night by myself anymore. And I live in a small town between Columbia, Missouri and Jefferson City, Missouri. We're right smack in the middle of the state. And I live in a town of about 3,000 people. The neighborhood I lived in was a brand new neighborhood right on the outskirts of town. It was surrounded by mostly fields, and at the edge of the fields were forests. The school was right there. I mean, it's not in the middle of nowhere. It was the night of July 4th, 2020. My fiance and I had come home from a 4th of July party, and we were sitting on my back porch, just smoking cigarettes, talking. It was late. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was odd that between like 3 and 4, birds were chirping like it was the middle of the day. And you just don't hear that. Birds aren't usually chirping away in the middle of the night. So all of a sudden, it got very quiet. No crickets, no frogs, no bugs.